Hi everybody, it's Dr. Chabot, and in this video we're going to look at the last symmetry that we're going to use Gauss's law for. So we've done spherical symmetry, we've done cylindrical symmetry, and now we're going to do plane symmetry, so flat symmetry. So let's just go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to sketch the picture of the object that we want to take the electric field from using Gauss's law. And so we're going to give this a surface charge density, sigma. So that would be coulombs per meter squared, right? And then this is going to be, an infinite plane. And the reason it needs to be an infinite plane is because we do need the electric field at all points to be pointing directly away from it. Again, it's the fringing effects that mess up the symmetry of Gauss's law. Okay, so if we go ahead and decide, well, what's going to match this symmetry? Honestly, anything that has kind of like the same planar symmetry would work. We're actually going to use the cylinder again, but in a different way. So I'm going to sketch my Gaussian pillbox, as it's called. I'm not sure where that got its name, but basically we're going to take the cylinder, but we're going to orient it differently now. So we're going to have here, and let me draw this bottom portion a little bit better. So that's going to be the orientation. I could have actually just taken a regular box as well. But now we have this as our Gaussian surface. So this is our Gaussian surface, and it has two sides parallel to our plane. That's the key idea. And then everything else is right angles. So when we go ahead and we do our good old symmetry and we look at our DAs, we have to look at the DA of each surface. So on each part of the surface, remember DA always points perpendicular to the surface. And so that hasn't changed. So we have our DAs. And then now I can come through and I'll draw my electric field in light blue. And so my electric field at all points is going to be coming directly away from the charged plane. So assuming a positive charge, then my electric field would be as shown. And we can see that it's actually going to be parallel to the sides, right? And so if we go ahead and do Gauss's law, and we start with the left-hand side, which is the closed integral for our whole Gaussian surface of E dot dA. Well, when I have, just like with the cylinder, when I have this surface where I don't have the same thing happening on every surface, I can go ahead and just divide this up. I can say that this is going to be E dot dA for the curved portion plus E dot dA for the flat portions, just like we had done previously with our cylindrical symmetry. And so then we can look at each one of these. And if we do this, right, E dot dA for the curved surface, we note that E is perpendicular to dA on the curved surface, opposite of what we saw when we used it for cylindrical symmetry, right? But here we have that side surface where the E and the dA are perpendicular. So E dot dA is going to be equal to 0. So this entire first term just goes to 0 because of that perpendicular electric field to our dA vector. So that leaves us with just this, which is going to be here, that E is parallel to dA. So this becomes the integral of E dA. And E, our steps are the same steps. The magnitude of E is constant. If we look at the flat surfaces, is constant on the flat surfaces. So that then becomes E pulls out of the integral and it becomes E dA. And then dA is the total area of the flat Gaussian surface. And so there's two of them, right? There's two of those. So that's going to just then become here E times 2 times pi r squared. where that's going to be the area of one flat part of that Gaussian surface. So the left-hand side here then just becomes E times 2 pi r squared. And now we'll move on to the right-hand side. And the right-hand side is going to be the charge enclosed in this Gaussian surface over epsilon naught. So if we go back up to our original diagram and we kind of picture the charge enclosed, so my Q enclosed would be what's in that plane. That is the shaded portion. And so the Q enclosed, because now I have planar symmetry, is going to be equal to sigma times the area enclosed. And the area enclosed is simply going to be sigma times pi r squared. Note that it's not 2 pi r squared because I just have that one part of the one plane. And so I'm not talking about the ends of the Gaussian cylinder anymore. I'm talking about the portion of the plane that's enclosing charge, which is just the pi r squared. So my Q enclosed is simply sigma times pi r squared over epsilon naught. I can put these together. So my left-hand side equals my right-hand side. And I get E times 2 pi r squared equals sigma times pi r squared over epsilon naught. And if we then solve this for E, we see that my pi's and my r squareds actually cancel. So just like when we set an arbitrary kind of length to our Gaussian cylinder and cylindrical symmetry and it dropped out on both sides, here it's going to be my r of the radius of this Gaussian cylinder that's going to drop out on both sides. So it's essentially the top size, the size of the top and bottom flat parts is what drops out. And so I end up with this result, which is that E is equal to sigma over 2 epsilon naught. And so this here is the same result that we've derived before, this time much easier derivation, but we notice that it does not drop off with distance. So there's no R dependence. And so it's just going to drop off, not drop off at all, and just stay constant and uniform, which is what we expect for a uniform plane.